Hey guys, it's Hidan'sHeathen. Today, to celebrate the release of Mugen Train in the US, I am going to be defending Zenitsu from Demon Slayer. I love Zenitsu, but based off of the comments on Crunchyroll, a lot of people don't feel the same way. So, as a Zenitsu apologist, I want to go over the reasons why I think he's such a great character. Anyway, let's get into it. While Zenitsu is first introduced in episode 5, after the conclusion of the final selection, he didn't really interact with Tanjiro until episode 11, when they meet up on the way to the Suzumi Mansion. There he is seen trying to get a girl to marry him, even though she already has a fiancé. Tanjiro clearly disapproves of Zenitsu's actions, and the look of disdain that he gives Zenitsu is hilarious. Zenitsu wants to get married because he thinks that he is going to face death imminently, so he wishes to at least marry before his life is over. In this way, it is immediately apparent to the viewer that Zenitsu does not follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which makes him such an interesting character. Maslow's hierarchy of needs itself is a psychological theory that posits that people are motivated by 5 types of needs: physiological needs, safety needs, love needs, esteem needs, and self-actualization needs. According to this theory, one needs to satisfy the needs in each tier before they can move to a higher tier. Within a few minutes of meeting Tanjiro, Zenitsu received food from him because he had none of his own, so it's clear that Zenitsu barely has his most basic physiological needs fulfilled, yet he's trying to get married, which is part of the 3rd tier. It is important to mention that Maslow's hierarchy of needs hasn't always been supported by data and research, but it is an incredibly influential theory that Zenitsu smashes to pieces. Zenitsu then goes on to explain that he only became a demon slayer because he was swindled into it. Zenitsu gave money to a woman, which put him into debt, and then an old man appeared and paid it off. In return for this, though, the old man trained Zenitsu to become a demon slayer. This is probably the most hilarious reason for becoming a demon slayer possible, and I really like how it is such a stark contrast from the reason why Tanjiro became a demon slayer. Before meeting Zenitsu and then Inosuke, it logically seems like everyone who wasn't born into a demon-slaying family would have joined because they knew someone who had been killed by a demon. Consequently, Zenitsu's reason, or more accurately, how he was coerced into the Demon Slayer Corps, was really refreshing. It highlights how the people within the Corps have diverse motivations, and that the Demon Slayer Corps itself isn't a monolithic entity. When Zenitsu and Tanjiro arrive at the Suzumi Mansion, it is clear that Zenitsu does not want to go inside. He only does so when Tanjiro enters, and once inside, he panics when he finds out that Tanjiro is injured. When the Suzumi drum separates Zenitsu and Shoichi from Tanjiro and Teruko, Shoichi scolds Zenitsu for being so cowardly, and asks Zenitsu if he is ashamed of himself for clinging onto a child. This scene is hilarious, and it brings humor to an otherwise extremely dark situation. Zenitsu is clearly impacted by Shoichi's words, but he doesn't change his behavior. Instead, he runs towards what he thinks is the exit, only to find that the entrance is no longer there. When they eventually encounter a demon, Zenitsu's first instinct is to grab Shoichi and run, rather than face it head-on. The demon then entraps them in a room, and Zenitsu gets so terrified that he faints and falls asleep. Even the demon is confused as to what is going on, but it is through fainting that Zenitsu's power awakens. Just when the demon's tongue is about to reach them, Zenitsu springs up and rapidly slashes it. Zenitsu then slides into his thunder-breathing stance and cuts off the demon's head in one swing. When Zenitsu wakes up immediately afterward, he doesn't recall killing the demon, and he thinks that Shoichi was the one that did it. It's super entertaining to watch Zenitsu praise Shoichi, and beyond that, this scene really highlights how Zenitsu's character concept is incredibly unique. Not only is he terrified of almost everything, which is quite rare in shonen anime, he also doesn't know the extent of his own strength. Branching off of this, I'm going to discuss another reason why Zenitsu is such an awesome character. He is pretty much the embodiment of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, as defined by Abigail Abrams in Time magazine, is the idea that you've only succeeded due to luck, and not because of your talent or qualifications. Imposter syndrome can apply to anyone who isn't able to internalize and own their successes. It first seems like Zenitsu might have imposter syndrome when he mentioned to Tanjiro that he only survived the final selection due to luck in episode 11, but this scene, and pretty much all of episode 17, You Must Master One Thing, cemented this notion. Zenitsu quite literally blacks out his successes, and then when he wakes up, he can't grasp the fact that he was the one who caused the victory. Even in episode 17, when it's clear that Zenitsu is the one who killed the spider demon, he still hates himself and has a hard time accepting that he is a person who is worthy of love, which shows his imposter syndrome to the highest degree. Once Zenitsu escapes the Suzumi Mansion by unceremoniously falling out of it, he proceeds to protect Tanjiro's box from Inosuke, even though he didn't know why Tanjiro was carrying a demon. Zenitsu hadn't met Nezuko yet, but he still protected the box because he knew that it was important to Tanjiro. Zenitsu and Tanjiro had just met, yet Zenitsu was willing to get 2 of his ribs fractured to protect Nezuko, even though keeping a demon alive goes against Demon Slayer code. This scene calls attention to how Zenitsu is a wonderful friend, even if it is usually shrouded by his over-the-top pleading. If Zenitsu hadn't defended the box, it is likely that Nezuko would have died because she would have been exposed to sunlight, so it's not a stretch to say that Zenitsu saved Nezuko's life before he even started simping for her. Moving ahead to when Zenitsu actually meets Nezuko, while Zenitsu's reaction to Nezuko is certainly over the top, it provided much-needed comedic relief after the heavy events of the Suzumi Mansion. In addition, Zenitsu's love for Nezuko becomes one of the main jokes of the show, which I will discuss more at the end when I briefly mention the events of Mugen Train. Really though, Nezuko is absolutely adorable, and as Tanjiro says, Nezuko was the beauty of their hometown, so who can blame Zenitsu for liking her after he got scammed by his past fiancé? Focusing now on episode 17, this episode cemented my love for Zenitsu. I'd already found him amusing and intriguing before this, but his backstory gave him a whole new level of complexity. It is revealed in this episode that Zenitsu hates himself and that he wishes he were a strong and brave person. He just never had anyone pushing him to become the best version of himself until he met Gramps. People usually give up on Zenitsu right away, but Gramps went out of his way to get Zenitsu back every time he tried to run away. Because of this, Zenitsu wants to make Gramps proud, but he can't help that he is a naturally fearful person. Gramps then gives Zenitsu my favorite bit of advice in the entire show thus far. He tells Zenitsu that he only has to master one thing, and that it's okay if he cries and runs away as long as he never gives up and believes in himself. This is an absolutely amazing message that can really apply to anyone. It's okay if you're not good at everything, and it's okay to be afraid as long as you never give in. Zenitsu draws upon this message as he breathes to slow down the spread of the poison in his body. In this moment, Zenitsu shows the viewer how sometimes you just need one person to believe in you, and that even if you fail a few times, you are still a redeemable person. Just having one person validating your efforts can really make a big difference, and Zenitsu's character highlights this. This then ties into my next point as to why Zenitsu is a good character. Zenitsu is clearly meant to bring humor to the show, since the show's themes are extremely macabre, yet unlike a lot of gag characters, Zenitsu actually has a lot of depth. He has complex reasons for acting in the way that he does, many of which are rooted in his tragic past. Since he grew up without parents, he didn't have someone to keep him in line, and the other children gave up on him as soon as he started crying. Zenitsu's past gives context to his present, yet his past doesn't inhibit him from being a funny character. Zenitsu is someone you can laugh at, yet he isn't just carelessly written for a quick laugh. He is also someone you can sympathize with. I'm now going to briefly discuss the events of Mugen Train, so if you haven't seen the film yet, you might want to click off of this video. Please like and subscribe before you do though. Anyway, even though Zenitsu didn't get a ton of action in Mugen Train, Zenitsu's propensity to fight while passed out was a natural counter to Enmu's power. As Enmu mentioned, Zenitsu never even broke out of his demon art jutsu, he just protected the people on the train while sleeping. Zenitsu's dreamscape also brought much-needed comedy to the film, since the movie tackled dark topics like the guilt of being the only one in your family to survive and Rengoku's death. The contrast between Tanjiro's beautiful sky soul and Zenitsu's pitch black one was hilarious, and even though Zenitsu got the least amount of screen time between Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Rengoku, he was much needed in the film to break up these heavy events. So that's it for this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment what you think of Zenitsu. I'm trying to save up to buy a proper mic, so please consider supporting me on Ko-fi if you can. A $2 donation would really help. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.